Hello, and thanks for joining us today on NCI Live. I'm your host, David Groth. I'm a technical sales specialist here at Network Center. Today, we're going to be talking about 2023 cybersecurity trends with our guest, Dan Wolford from Blue Team Alpha. He's a CISO over at Blue Team Alpha. Welcome, Dan. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm excellent. Wanted to let everybody know, those of you that are joining us for the first time, that we're live on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you have any questions for either Dan or myself, please feel free to chat us there, and we'll do our best to answer them live here on the air. With that, we're going to turn it over to our expert, Dan. How are things going over there at Blue Team Alpha?
It's busy. It has been for the last decade, and it's steadily growing. I haven't been with Blue Team Alpha for the last decade. I was actually Air Force Cyber Command, and I retired a couple of years ago. And I joined Blue Team Alpha because it was a chance to work from home for the first time in my career. I've always been underground or, in some windowless building, but also they have unlimited PTO, which is pretty amazing. And I get to continue the mission of what I enjoy doing the most, which is cyberspace, defending America in cyberspace. I get a chance to do that professionally now as a civilian, so I love it. And Blue Team Alpha, our specialty is it started with incident response, and then we're able to, get a business back online after an attack, but then we offer a wide range of services, and we're really focused on the 16 critical sectors. So, we provide our security services to, city and state governments, water treatment facility, energy production, healthcare, finance, the major critical sectors in the United States.
Excellent. Well, I can tell you that when we first talked, just a couple of weeks ago here now, one of my things whenever I meet people that are experts in their field, but it's also nice to know that they're passionate about it. And from what I'm hearing, that with Blue Team Alpha, the unlimited PTO portion, people work there because they really love what they do. They would do it for free, if the money wasn't good, right? You have the benefits,
Yes,
the PTO, all that, but you really care about what you do, and that's
exactly.
important.
We
But
do try to recruit people, veterans, cyber warfare veterans specifically, because they've been doing this type of work at a national and a global scale. And then we say, okay, you were in the trenches, now come and work with us. And now we're just going to focus on America. We're just going to protect American business. And they love it. They get to do what they love and then protect our own people, our own country. So
right.
we try to recruit those really high quality cybersecurity experts, to join the team.
Right, the best of the best that are out there. You're out there working it every day.
And
That's
we have to
awesome.
make them, I have to tell them to take PTO. I'm like,
Yep.
take leave. Like, you've been working for weeks or months.
Yep.
Take some time off. Your mental health is important too.
Yep. So your title is CISO. Can you tell us what that is, just briefly?
Yes, sir. So, I joined as deputy CISO, and that was because I was mostly technical, and I wanted to take some time to learn the business side of security. So after a couple of years, I did get promoted last year to CISO, and now I have a hybrid role where I'm still technical. I'm still helping deliver high quality security services, but I'm also working on the business side, like budgeting and scoping and pricing and working with
Mm-hmm.
sales and marketing. So the
Sure.
CISO role is really a combination of both sides of the cybersecurity.
Excellent. Well, we talked a lot about kind of the bigger picture. Let's talk the future. Let's get out your crystal ball. Let's
Yeah,
let's
I have been
we're
thinking about this a lot, and when I saw the opportunity to speak with you about trends, I wanted
mhm.
to take this because I believe strongly in prevention. If
Mm,
we see a
yeah.
trend and we know what's
Ounce of prevention,
coming,
right?
we can invest in prevention early. We're still early in the year, but we are seeing some pretty interesting trends. And the three things that I wanted to discuss within this, limited amount of time was: number one, data loss prevention, and I'll explain why. This is an old threat, but I'll explain why this is a new trend. Two is your insider threats. Again, old threat, but I'm seeing a new trend. And three, new everything, Chat GPT.
Yeah. Yep. Just that we're being inundated with that. It's like all over the internet like a rash right now. And that's excellent. We're only 2 months in, and already I've seen those three things being big topics in more of a general sense. But yes, obviously very much in security. Okay, well let's start with DLP. What
Yeah.
data loss prevention? What is it?
So it's a well-known problem with companies that might have a data breach or just data loss in general. They have sensitive data and information. They don't want it leaked. They don't want it stolen. They don't want it to be outside of their network. If you're a hospital, you want to protect patient data. If you're a bank, you're going to protect your customers' financial data.
Hmm.
So data loss prevention, it's an old term. It's been around for decades. But the new trend that I'm seeing is with cyber extortion, right? Everybody knows
Hmm.
ransomware. The criminals, they get onto a network and they do ransomware. They put a password on all the files, they encrypt all the files, and they want to get paid, typically in a cryptocurrency. The trend that we're seeing a lot last year, but growing, is companies are getting very good at recovering from the ransomware, either through backups or recovery service like Blue Team Alpha. So what
Hmm.
the criminals have done, because they treat this like a business, they're going to innovate, they're going to pivot, right? So what they're doing now is they're going to steal the data first. So it's a double extortion. Before they do the ransomware, they're going to steal the data and then threaten to either sell it or leak it. If they leak it, then the victim has a problem with regulations. They've had data breach, and
Mm.
now it's all their sensitive data is being leaked. So there could be some substantial fines depending on how they're regulated,
Lawsuits. Yep.
lawsuits and
Lawsuits.
fines. So
Yep.
that puts extra pressure on their victim to pay, because they're say, if you don't pay us, we're going to leak your data or sell it. So in including the ransomware. So not only are the files encrypted and you can't recover, but they're also threatening to sell it.
So here's I'm going to ask the generic question that you may have gotten before, you may not have. I don't know. Is there honor among thieves?
Some
When that's
occasionally,
okay.
we have seen threat actors, and we talk to the threat actors. Try to ask them questions. Where are you from? Why are you doing this?
Hmm.
And they are people. We have to remember, these are intelligent human beings on the other side of the attack.
Hmm.
And they're doing it for a reason. Sometimes it's because they're from a country that has a bad economy and they weren't going into crime intentionally. They just got into crime to pay the bills. It's unfortunate. It is still crime, but they don't think of it that way. They think of it as a business, and it's like they're doing a security audit and the victim is their customer. It's a twisted
Hmm.
way, I know, to think about extortion, but
Yeah.
they try to justify it in their own mind because of their economy. And what
Sure.
I've seen is sometimes when they hit a hospital, they're like, they regret it and they're like, oh, sorry, we didn't know it was a hospital, we're not trying to hurt anybody, we just
Right.
want to get paid. So then they will give them give the decryption key to the hospital. I have seen that.
Yep.
But most of the time, no, I don't trust cybercrime or cyber criminals at all.
Hmm.
Would never advise someone to pay just because it's cheaper and faster, because there's no guarantee they're going to delete the data. They can still sell it, they can still leak it, they can come
Hmm.
back and do the ransomware again next week.
Yep.
So, definitely don't, I don't advise paying. And
Yep.
FBI, DHS, everyone, we all agree, don't pay, because it just keeps the business going. It keeps it profitable.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that was kind of the big question. I never people actually talk about it because I hear that there's multiple facets to that. They're like, look, they made $1 million payout, but then nobody ever talks about or few talk about what happens afterwards. Did they get the key? Did they get the decryption? Did they get the password? Was the data breached? Because I get emails from time to time I got one from T-Mobile, I got one from uh, PayPal, and some of the bigger companies, right? That they had breaches of X data. No customer data was compromised.
Right.
I'm calling a little bit of, that's some
Yeah.
spin, right?
That's the new trend, is they're stealing the data. And so what I would suggest is that people look at DLP, because this is a well-known problem. Data loss has been a problem for a long time. There are some technological solutions out there. You can find the top 10 list of vendors like Digital Guardian or Checkpoint or Proofpoint. They
Mhm.
focus on DLP solutions, and you also need to have a baseline of your network. So if if there is a big spike of data leaving your network, that needs to be an alert and it needs to be investigated, because it may not be a backup. It may not be
Mm,
your IT department doing a backup. It could be this cyber criminal stealing the data before they do the ransomware
right.
attack. They have to do that first. So if you can
Right.
catch the data loss, then you could prevent the ransomware.
So let's talk preventative measures. What kind of protections can we put in place? What kinds of solutions? I've
Yeah.
heard of a few, but what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mentioned those just a minute ago, but I'll mention them again. I don't want to. Blue Team Alpha is vendor agnostic. We're
Hmm.
neutral, so I can't recommend any particular solution. But there are companies who are offering
I see.
DLP,
Yep.
and
Hmm.
Digital Guardian, Checkpoint, and Proofpoint are three
Yep.
examples. There are more. There's probably more than 10.
Let me ask this more specific then. How about, so we have a lot of customers here at Network Center that are on Microsoft 365.
Yeah.
Microsoft 365, in one of their license options, they have Purview. And in part of it was called something else. Now it's called Purview, and it has an
Right.
umbrella that covers a lot of pieces, including data loss prevention and e-discovery and various other things. What is
Yes.
your take on that as a preventative measure for data loss prevention? Data
Yeah.
loss prevention.
Yeah, it can. So it can be done. What you would have to do is classify your data. So you need to classify the data, whether it's sensitive or not, if it's public or sensitive. That way, if the sensitive data is being detected leaving the network, then it flags. You also have to
Mm,
classify the users, if they have access to sensitive data or not, because you're going to want to
mm,
monitor their access to the sensitive data.
mm.
So that there's also some policies at play, your access control and your
Right,
data transmission policies, encryption policies. That's important, but also you want to have a good baseline so you can detect those anomalies. And that's what
right.
the technology is supposed to do, is help you create a baseline to see what's normal. And then if something spikes out of the normal, like 10 gigs, like with Sony years ago,
Oh, yeah.
gigabyte, huge amounts of data leaving the network,
Yep.
that needs to be an alert and has to be investigated.
Right. So I really think it comes down to, just in my personal opinion, I think it comes down to three things. You've got the technology,
Mhm.
you've
Yeah.
got processes, and then you've got the people, right? And
Yep.
by process, I mean like company policy, or just general, like you kind of mentioned, data classification or other thing. You can make it company policy that when you do things operationally, you're classifying the data to assist in the data loss
Right.
prevention. And it's company policy that social security numbers or company hospital data or whatever is stored a certain way. That's more like governance, but the governance and the data loss prevention would go hand in hand, right?
Yes.
And then the people really need the training, and that's part of an all-encompassing plan. People don't plan to fail; they fail to plan. And I'm really known for some of these, trite sayings, but they do apply, right?
Yeah. To be consistent, if you keep preaching that same message, it will sink in. People do listen. Continuous training, education, awareness, they call it. There's a new acronym I've seen. It's SETA, Security Education Training Awareness. If
Yes.
we keep hammering the same message over and over and over, people do listen. It will sink in.
Yep.
So we just keep the message going.
It goes. It sometimes that particular thing, we've seen a lot more people implementing plans that include that, but security education is kind of goes back for me to, uh, was it uh, war games, where the teachers are writing the password of the computer on the
Yeah.
little sticky note. So anyway, I digress. Um, so let's move on a little bit, and I'm gonna just take a real quick break here and just remind everyone that's watching live, please, you know, Dan is an expert in his field. Please chat in your questions, and feel free to ask him on any topic here that we're talking about. And again, you're on either YouTube or uh, LinkedIn Live. So let's move on, Dan, and let's talk about insider threats. We've seen a
Yes.
lot of layoffs recently in the tech sector. Just locally, one that's been affected, we have a Microsoft campus here locally, and that's been very largely affected. So insider threats, people that are leaving from a company, I see that as being a huge threat. What do you see? What do you see now and upcoming for 2023?
Yes, we have seen two types of insider threats. We've seen intentional and unintentional. So intentional insider threats, just malicious people that are doing bad things with the access they have. That's a well-known problem, nothing new there. You know, but unintentional insider threats is something that I've seen emerging because of the economy of the United States, global economy. We're have potentially a recession. A lot of people are being laid off. A lot of people in the tech space and security space that have higher level privilege. And the problem there is that those individuals, their accounts, sometimes there is a window, an opening where someone can get access to that account because the employee is going to be laid off or terminated, but their
Mm-hmm.
account hasn't been deprovisioned, it hasn't been locked down. So
Mm-hmm.
the account is still active, but the employee no longer works there. So a cyber criminal is able to get access to that and then have
Right.
their level of access, which could potentially be, admin level access to the network. And I've seen it. I've actually seen this happen where a person was laid off, their account was not locked, so someone got access to it, and they were, inside the network downloading sensitive data, and they had access to everything that employee had access to, and there was such a big window from the time that person was let go until their account was actually shut off. It was several months.
Yeah.
So, and because there are hundreds of thousands of people being laid off, the team that is responsible for decommissioning and freezing those accounts could be overwhelmed. So that
Right.
window, is going to be bigger than normal because of that problem. So the window of exploitation gets bigger
Yeah.
because of that situation.
So going back to what I had mentioned is it kind of um, all of these security practices, they kind of go into every aspect of any company. So security awareness training is kind of a big piece of that. Like you've got HR that needs to be notifying IT,
Yeah.
or if you have a CISO or some other department group that's responsible for that, they need to know. And it's a process. It could even be, in theory, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, automated. There could be a piece that when this happens, there's an
Yeah.
audit that's done, could be automated. Hey, these people still have access or they don't, whatever that happens to be. It could trip
Yes.
off a bunch of stuff, but that needs to be part of a company's thinking when it comes to a security front. Am I right?
Yes, it automation, it definitely helps make the window smaller. So when a person is identified as being let go, then their account can be locked the same day. Sometimes even before the employee is notified, which
Mm-hmm.
causes other problems. They can't log in to get the email to notify them that they're being laid off.
Right.
That's another problem. But also think about what happens to the employees who are not laid off in that situation. They could become disgruntled, and then they could potentially become the intentional insider threat.
Right.
Hey,
Their
I
best
haven't
friend
been
was
laid
laid
off
off.
yet. I
Yep.
still have access. So the other part that I've seen is the cyber criminals. They understand this is an opportunity for them to take advantage of the situation. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to offer cash money or cryptocurrency to an employee to just all you have to
Oh
do is
yeah.
open this email, click this link, and throw your hands up. Hey, I'm dumb. I'm an idiot. I accidentally clicked on social engineering, but they were paid to do it. And I've seen this with some companies. I don't want to name it. I won't name any, but I've seen employees that open an email, clicked a link, and then it turned. Came to find out later after the investigation that they were paid, that cyber
Mm-hmm.
criminals had access, to their information. They were talking to them and saying, "We are going to send you this. Click it." And then that was the initial attack vector into the network, was from an employee giving them
Mm-hmm.
access. And
Yeah.
on the dark web, you'll see cyber criminals posting on the dark web. If you work at a tech company, IT company, a service provider, we will pay you to give us your access.
Yeah.
And that's
That
being actively advertised.
And I would think that would be a very large target because it's not just one set of admin credentials, it's hundreds of sets in theory, right? And there are protections, numerous protections in place for that, but that kind of an attack vector is extremely important. So, so what kind of uh, What kind of things internally could a company do to mitigate that, both technology wise and maybe non-technology
Yes.
wise? Are there any things that can be done to mitigate that?
I have thought about three potential solutions that could prevent this type of situation. So, one, just technology wise, have good email security.
Mm,
Email continues to be the most common attack vector for social
mm,
engineering. So, you want to have, there are some solutions like Mimecast and Barracuda and Proofpoint, and, depending on your email provider,
mm,
that you're going to look for all the common red flags about phishing, like are they telling you to do something or click something or download or open, so
mm.
that goes back to education, training, awareness of the employees.
Right.
Next, from a policy perspective, you want to have a good incident response plan. So if you do have suspicious activity, you do have something that it needs to be investigated, you have a way to handle it. You know who to call.
Mm,
This is something Blue Team Alpha we focus on with the customers is, do you have a plan? We'll help you make one. Do you know how to use it? Let's do a tabletop. Let's do an attack simulation where you can actually
right.
go through the steps of the plan. And
Right.
that's important from a policy point of view. And then the third one, just from a humanity point of view, is the job security. To not to think about the environment and the situation, about people potentially becoming internal insider threats because of lack of money. They're worried about their career, their future. If
Mm.
if you're able to provide job security and compensate employees well, then you lower your risk of someone becoming intentional insider threat.
I'm sensing kind of a recurring theme here is that security isn't just a technology issue. I'm also hearing a big piece of this being
People,
a people issue, and then to an extension of that, an HR issue. And
yeah.
so really, if you're in a security type position, an IT type position, and you're worried about your security, you really need to be in close communication with your HR group and have the pulse of the company, because if your employees are vastly unhappy, by and large, there really could, in theory, be a potential security threat there.
Yes.
Is that a
Yeah.
correct statement?
Absolutely. And what I've said this before, joking but seriously, a a a secure company would have no employees. The employees are a major factor of your security program.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we trust them, we do background checks, but still in a zero trust architecture, you still want to make sure that the employees' accounts that are authenticated on the network, they're not being abused by an unauthorized user. There's a big
Right.
difference.
Right.
Authenticated versus authorized, because their account, someone else, some unknown person, potentially, a criminal could get access to that employee's account and then have access to everything, all their data, all their networks, and everything else.
Absolutely. Well, we've got about a few minutes left here in our time. Let's kind of talk about the last topic, and kind of an
Yes.
exciting one. A lot of people talking about it. Let's talk Chat GPT, or really the AI function, because there's a few other outliers, and it's hard to go anywhere, any social or business media, without somebody bringing it up. So let's talk about it.
Yeah,
First of all, a
I
little
love it.
that's a little.
I'm a
If you've been hiding under a rock, what is it? And
Yeah,
then tell me
so
what the security implementations are.
Open API is the parent company of this tool, Chat GPT. That's the consumer version where, you as a user, and by the way, it's the fastest growing app of all time, over
By
a
far.
million users in under a week.
Yep.
And what it allows you to do is have direct access to one of the world's most powerful, advanced artificial intelligence systems ever created. I mean,
Mm,
as a computer scientist myself, I believe this is a huge step in human evolution, making this kind of technology available to people to use to make your life better. And
mm,
that's why I support it. I quickly wrote a policy for Blue Team Alpha to be able to use it responsibly. But what I'm seeing is the attackers, they're smart people. They're going to use all tools and technology available to them to do their business, which is the business of cybercrime. So
mm,
with ChatGPT, what you can do is give it scenarios and it replies back. It has access to the world's knowledge up to, I think, 2021. So it's able
mm.
to respond back to your prompts with something intelligent and useful. And
Yep.
how I've seen the criminals using it is, first, with social engineering, some of the red flags for social engineering is like not perfect grammar because the attacker English may not be their first language, so they don't write
Sure.
totally correct. So an American user gets that email, they're like, "This just sounds weird. This doesn't look right. Something's off." When the
Right.
attacker uses Chat GPT, it comes out in perfect English. So those red flags are out the window. When they're using a tool like this to generate a social engineering type attack email, it won't have those red flags.
Right.
But
Yeah.
also, Chat GPT is amazing because it's not limited to just English language. It can also read and write code
Yeah.
program.
I
It
saw
can
that.
make programs. It can make apps. It can find bugs. It can find vulnerabilities in code that somebody can paste in there and say, "Hey, ChatGPT, can you find a vulnerability in this code?" And then it says yes. And then, oh, can you write an exploit for that code? Yes, I
Mm,
can. Because
mm.
people are finding ways to bypass the security, the limitations of the chatbot.
Right.
And so also I've seen where Microsoft has invested, $10 billion in the parent company, and then they integrated Chat GPT with the new version of Bing. So now from
Yes.
the
I
Bing
saw that.
search bar, you're going to get this Chat GPT results in the Bing search bar. So it just makes it's much easier for us, for, normal people to use it to make our life easier, but also everything we have access to, the criminal is going to use to try to do, their business too.
So it's another mind. I use that term really loosely here, but it's got somebody, another actor, maybe is a better way to put that, that can assist in these
Yeah,
types of texts, but it has access to a vast body of knowledge that a single actor could not use all at once. Is that a fair statement?
yeah, it is pretty frightening about what it knows and what it can do once you bypass those limitations that were put on by the developers. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of security people out there that are doing this, with good intentions. They're trying to find ways to bypass the restrictions, but what happens when those restrictions get bypassed is that you get some dangerous results. So somebody is able to put in, write me a ransomware. Someone actually did this. They said, help me create a ransomware program that can encrypt certain type of files, and
Hmm.
then help me create an email where I can send this to the victim. And it was able to do it because they used one of those
Yeah.
methods to bypass the restrictions.
Yeah.
And so if it makes the criminal's job easier, they're going to do it.
Gotcha. Well, I, for one, welcome our computer overlords. They are, no, it's a joke for, where was that from anyway? That was like from The Simpsons, uh, something like, yeah, it was the Kent Brockman from, sorry, squirrel moment. Any rate, well, we've pretty much come to the end of our time here together. I want to thank you, Dan. This has been very enlightening. And really fun to talk about. I really enjoy cybersecurity topics. I do want to make a quick note that we are actually having an upcoming session on March 22nd, talking specifically about ChatGPT and the security
Good.
implementations. But it's really good to have your input at this point, and because it is an exciting topic and industry changing, life changing. I mean, I agree. It has been one of the newest developments that has come out, and one of the most the biggest things to come out in quite some time, where people, it's not just been a snooze fest. People are like,
Yeah.
this is different. This is
I
completely
I
different.
actually I said that to me, this is the biggest innovation we've had in tech since Bitcoin. And that
Yep.
came, that was 2008.
Yeah.
So,
It's been a minute.
it's been a while, and now everybody, all eyes on, everyone's using it. It's affecting every sector, every business vertical. Everyone's going to be touched by it, whether you know it or not. It's been happening behind the scenes on the back end, like Google and Microsoft. They've been using this
Hmm.
technology for years,
Hmm.
on their end, the back end. But now, for the first time, it's available to us as consumers, and it's free for a limited time. It's free for us to use, so it's good to
Yep.
use it and understand how it works, understand the
Absolutely.
limitations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to kind of summarize here and say again, Dan, this has been a great time together, and thank you for all of your insight. And always love talking with experts in cybersecurity. It is always enlightening. For those of you watching, I do appreciate you attending as well. If you have further questions after this live broadcast, feel free to visit our website at www.netcenter.net. You could email us at info@netcenter.net or on any of our social media channels. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell for notifications so that you get notified the next time we go live, which we do every 2 weeks. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us here on NCI Live. Please come back and join us again for our next broadcast. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.